good old Gucci Glock. Everybody loves them or loves to hate them. I have in my hands my Agency Arms customized Glock. It's a Generation 3 Model 17, Glock 17, and it's heavily modified. People are always looking to modify the Glock. Out of the box, I'll admit it's an ugly little brick of a gun. Extremely functional, one of the best handguns ever designed. I think that's been borne out by its history over the last 30 or so years. It's certainly earned a place in the record books and in the history books as being one of the most adopted, most used, most loved handguns. And so people have taken to modifying them for a number of different reasons. In this case, it's cosmetic because I wanted a theme gun. In other cases, people will modify them for use in competition. Sometimes people just want to mod them because they just like tinkering with things. And the Glock has become kind of the AR-15 of the handgun world. Tons of people making accessories for it, tons of people modifying them, turning them into what is commonly called a Gucci Glock, which is almost a derogatory term depending on who's using it. So today I want to talk about a new entry into the field. However, it's very much different than your average Gucci Glock. So much so, I don't think it's a Gucci Glock. I think it's a new type of handgun. All right, guys, let's get started by firing my Agency Arms, and then let's take a look at the new ZEV OZ9. This is the new ZEV OZ9. When I say new, it's not really new. There's quite a few videos out there already on it here on YouTube. There's blog posts out there about it. There's probably even some magazine articles out there. I don't know. I don't read the magazines anymore. But ZEV has been sending these things out to just about anybody with an audience, myself included. I have no money in this handgun. They sent me this handgun for testing and evaluation, so I did not buy this handgun. So let's talk about it. When I talked to ZEV and they wanted to send me the handgun, I told them this is not my cup of tea. This is not my audience's cup of tea, generally speaking. I like military style firearms. I'm not real big into the Gucci Glock type guns, says the guy that has a Boba Fett themed Agency Arms Glock. But that aside, this isn't something I would carry. This is not something I deem to be a practical gun. And that's mostly because of the big slide, or the big holes cut into the slide, the heavy modification of the gun. But with that being said, when I got the gun, I took it apart, I watched some videos, I read the manual, yes, finally. I learned that this really isn't just a Gucci Glock. This is something completely different. This is a new handgun. It looks like a Glock. It borrows heavily from Glock's design, no arguing that, but it's a totally new handgun, and that piqued my interest in it. So let's start off by shooting the handgun. I have some Federal 130 grain and 124 grain Syntech ammunition. Federal does supply this ammunition to the channel free of charge. We want to thank our friends at Federal for keeping us well supplied in ammunition. This is a Glock 15 round Glock 17 magazine. Yeah, they make 10, 15, and 17 round magazines. You'll notice that it has a big funnel here, mag well, on the grip. Now, I don't like that type of a grip or mag well on a carry gun, on a competition gun. I get it. On a carry gun, I wouldn't want it. With the slide lock to the rear, it's very easy to get that magazine locked into place, but you'll notice without an extended floor plate, it's pretty much flush, and it makes it hard to stick the magazine and get it to lock with the slide home. All right, let's fire off the first few rounds for the morning. Very flat shooting, very nice shooting handgun. Magazines drop free. Another Glock 15 rounder. Make sure that's in there. Yes, very nice shooting little handgun. Now this isn't the first time I've shot the handgun. Obviously it has an RMR on it and I've already zeroed it. This one is an actual 17 round magazine, Glock. Yeah, I really like the way the gun shoots, and we'll talk more about that here in the video. But let's take a closer look at this OZ9, or the original ZEV 9, which is what OZ9 I hear stands for. The ergonomics on the OZ9 are different, as I've said already. It definitely has a flatter feel to it back here. And the one thing that I have to get used to, having shot Glocks for so many years, even though I preferred this grip angle, I naturally want to point a Glock low because it has a hump back here that's not present on the OZ9. And so I naturally want to point low, which puts the dot high. So I have to remember that I'm shooting more of a 1911 style grip angle, and I can then bring up that red dot sight very quickly, which is the RMR Type 2 that I have mounted to the gun. Also, it has very aggressive texturing, but not overly done. It has these dished out areas on both sides of the grip. I'm not sure what they're for. My thumb kind of sort of falls in there, but I shoot with a high thumb hold, so my thumb wouldn't be down there anyway. But it doesn't really change the way the gun feels in my hands, either positively or negatively. What I do like are these two textured spots here. For my ape-like fingers, this is my Glock with the safety on. This is my Glock with the safety off. Safety on, safety off, safety on. You get the point. So it's a nice spot where I can go with my index finger and rest it and not have to worry about it just kind of floating around. So it's really, really nice. Also on the other side, when I shoot, I have a grip like this, thumbs forward, and you'll notice that my thumb hits that spot the same way every time. You'll also notice that I naturally grip it. Maybe that dished out area is for this palm, because I can get tight in on the gun with the palm, which naturally holds this, my firing thumb, up high, which in turn keeps it away from the slide stop, slide release. So perhaps that is what that's for. Don't know. All I know is the gun feels really, really good in my hand. All right, some more Federal Syntech. This time we're using a Glock, a Magpul magazine. Now I also want to correct myself. I said that with the slide home that it's very hard to see the magazine, and that's not true if you do it right. You'll notice it's kind of dished out right here. So when I put the magazine in, notice the slide is home, push it forward, and you'll notice that dished out area kind of matches to my palm. Lock the magazine in place, charge the gun. Let's see if it stays in. All right, this is some more Syntech ammunition. What the hell? All right. The gun shoots really, really nice when I do my part. These are some warmer 115 grain ball. Now, let's talk about that trigger. So, gun is empty. Has a very heavy recoil spring on it too, I should add. So when I'm pulling the trigger, watch the trigger. I'm pulling, it's kind of rolling, gets a little heavy, and then breaks. Now I will say that the trigger pull is changing on me the more I shoot the gun. Usually it rolls, it'll get kind of hit a false shelf and then break. It kind of saw it there. It hesitated, then broke. It's not your typical high-end match trigger. It rolls. There, you saw it kind of creep, it's kind of stagey, and then bang. Reset is right here. But you'll notice, just in what I'm showing you here, the trigger pull varies from pull to pull. Right there, got a little bit stagey, and then break. Other times, it'll roll on reset right there, break, and then I'm going to go to reset right there, and if I pull from that point, it's actually right on the sear shelf right now, and it'll break. But if I do a full release and then come back, it's back that creepy, stagey, rolling trigger to break. So it's a very, very different trigger to master. 115 grain ball Federal. The gun shoots nice and flat. Yeah, I really like the way this gun shoots. We've had no malfunctions. We fired probably 300 rounds so far this afternoon, and the gun just keeps running and running. I really like it. Now, one thing I want to address is that there's a video out there that has over 85,000 views that I found, because when I first started posting pictures of this on Instagram, people were saying, oh, that's the gun that's garbage, it goes full auto. I found one video of a guy that bought one of these, and his gun was going full auto, or was firing when he was not pulling the trigger. Very dangerous situation. However, I've not seen any other reports other than that one. If you know of more, please post them down below. I don't want to cover that up. I want people to know about it. This gun doesn't appear to have that problem, but if it's a common occurrence, I think people should know. But so far I found one video which does not necessarily represent the OZ9s universally, because this one hasn't caused me any problems. I know several other people that have them that have had no problems with the gun. So one video does not make a flawed design or a bad design in my opinion, but I'll leave that up to you. You may have heard that the OZ9 is a Gucci Glock, and so let's talk about what a Gucci Glock is. This is a Gucci Glock. This is an Agency Arms Glock that's been heavily modified by Agency Arms, and when I say heavily modified, I've taken a factory Gen 3 Model 17, and I've had Agency Arms heavily modify the gun. They've stippled it, they've put this index finger rest up here, stippled that, they've heavily serrated the slide, they've put the agency markings into the slide, that A, the stylized A on both sides. The gun's been cut for an RMR. You can see the texturing is completely different. I've had them add a magazine well on the bottom, undercut on the trigger guard, agency trigger, agency internal components installed, and basically the whole trigger guard's been recontoured. So what they've done is taken, again, a factory Glock and heavily modified it to look like this. And then of course I had Blown Deadline do a theme paint job on it. I put an RMR on top, and I had him do a theme for a Star Wars blaster for Boba Fett. And there's the Mandalorian logo there on the pistol grip. So this is what most people would call a Gucci Glock. Now I can understand why people think that the OZ9 is in the same league as a Gucci Glock, but in my opinion, it's not. Now it has the same look, but it truly is a new gun. Now granted, it has a lot of commonality between it and the Glock that it emulates, so much so there will be components that are swappable. However, there have been some drastic changes to the overall design, and this is where I get into talking about how Glock really hasn't innovated in 30 years. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, but never really truly changing the base recipe. They'll put finger grooves on, they'll take the finger grooves off, they'll put a marksman's barrel in it, or they'll have polygonal rifling, they'll do different things with texturing and stuff like that, back straps that you can remove and add, but they never change that core pistol. They never change that basic recipe. The OZ9 does. This is how the OZ9 ships. This is an SKB hard case, and it's one of the few cases that you'll get with a new gun that's actually useful. Inside you're going to find laser cut foam that fits your pistol perfectly. On top, up here, we have a Magpul waterproof pouch that's going to have some swag in it, your owner's manual, things like that. Nice touch. That just kind of friction fits in there. You'll have two PMags. They're from Magpul, Glock magazine, 17 rounders. And then, of course, your pistol. Now, it does come pre-cut for an RMR, but the gun that I have here did not come with an RMR. I put the RMR on it. Let's go ahead and close up the case here. And before we proceed, I'm gonna have to take a short break, a quick intermission, to go grab my punch to show you just how different the internals of this gun are from a regular Glock. We're back, and I have the magic punch. All right, let's see if we can keep it from rolling away. Let's take the OZ9 apart. It's just like any other Glock in terms of how it's disassembled. I'm gonna go ahead and make sure that the weapon is clear. I look inside, no magazine inserted, chamber is empty, okay? I'm gonna go ahead and let that slide go home. And just like a Glock, I'm gonna slightly pull the slide to the rear, pull down on the takedown tabs, release the striker by pulling the trigger, and the two halves come apart. Now you're gonna notice as soon as you take the slide off, this frame is muzzle heavy. It's heavy in the nose. It has extra weight to it that a standard Glock does not have. Let's talk about that more here in a minute. On the upper half, we have a ZEV produced slide and barrel. It's very similar to a Generation 3 Glock 17. We have a captive recoil spring and a steel guide rod. And then the ZEV 9mm barrel that is button rifled and has golf ball dimpling on the barrel itself. You'll notice, you can see the large openings that ZEV has machined into the slide. And then of course they've cut it for an RMR, and then it has suppressor height sights, which the RMR sits really deep into the RMR cut on here. It does not require a mounting plate. It's cut for the RMR, so it sits nice and deep. And then you don't really need suppressor height sights. You just need slightly taller sights to give you a nice clean co-witness through the RMR with a fiber optic front sight. Set that aside. Now here is where Glock could have innovated, but decided to stick with the same pony that they've been producing for the last 30 years. That one-trick pony I'm always talking about. I'm going to take the punch. There's a pin right here by my index finger, just in front of the trigger guard. You can push on this pin from either direction. I'm going to go ahead and push the pin out. It doesn't take very much force. The pin pops out. There it is in my hand. I'm going to try my darndest not to lose that little pin. Now once you have the pin out, you're just going to grab the front metal portion. This part is metal. The polymer starts back here. Grab it by the metal portion and just lift up and pull forward. And now you have the polymer lower. This is replaceable for 59 bucks. You can jump on the ZEV website, order a flat dark earth one currently. And this is where Glock could have innovated. ZEV decided to do it for them. This is a chassis. This chassis is portable. You can put it into different grip frames, perhaps put it into an SBR chassis, whatever you want to do down the road. Hopefully people will start making third-party accessories that take advantage of this chassis system for the Glock. But internally, you have Glock type components, the sear and stuff like that. Still looks very similar, but it's distinctly ZEV. This adds weight to the gun, much like you would see with the tungsten infused polymer with the X5 Legion. This falls into that category. Very neat, adds weight, adds modularity, and certainly changes the game. Now this, in my opinion, is not a Gucci Glock. This is a new handgun. From what I've read online, it took them several years to design this thing, in essence, from the ground up. Granted, they borrowed heavily from the Glock in terms of design. However, they made it their own and truly improved upon the original concept of a Glock. They've brought it up to speed so it's competitive against the SIG P320 and other firearms that are now using a modular trigger system. Putting it back together, you just kind of set it in this way, push back and down, and notice there's no force required. It pops right in. The fit is perfect. And again, that steel insert, by the way, is the serialized part. That's the firearm, not the polymer. I'm going to grab the pin, put the pin in, try not to lose it in the grass. Just as I say, as it doesn't require much force. I didn't get it together right. All right, there we go. Put that little pin in. And this is where it can become very easy to over insert the pin. And push it right out the other side. Okay, got it right the first time. So now the pin's in place. and everything's locked up nice and tight. It's also worth noting that the slide rails on the chassis are much longer than what you're going to find on your average Glock. On a Glock, you just have two little metal tabs that are molded into the polymer frame. These are much longer, steel guide or slide slots, and they're dished out and scalloped, presumably to keep the gun working in harsh environments, which probably isn't a bad idea because ZEV has cut holes into the slide, which would allow for the ingress of debris, dirt, lint, whatever. So it's probably not a bad idea that they've designed it so it can operate with a little bit of gunk on the inside, because it can certainly get in there with hard use. Putting the slide back together is just like any Glock. Drop your barrel in, take your recoil spring and guide rod, make sure that's on the perch. Try not to lose my punch here. Put your slide on the frame, pull it to the rear until it clicks, and the gun is back together. So the only thing that I find surprising that ZEV left out in the design is that we have a slide stop, slide release on one side of the gun, but we don't have it on the other. They went so far to modernize the Glock pistol and take it to another level, but yet they brought the modularity over, but they left behind the dual controls, which even Glock now supplies on their factory handguns. So that's a major disappointment, and left-handed shooters out there are not going to be very happy about that. Now you will notice that they've changed other things here with the gun. Most notably, finally dropped my punch in the grass, is the grip angle. Notice the exaggerated grip angle of the green agency gun versus the grip angle of the ZEV. The ZEV is more 1911-ish in terms of the angle, but it's not like a 1911 because it's very much thicker than a 1911. But the grip angle's similar. ZEV has gotten rid of this distinctive Glock hump, which naturally makes the gun want to point high and forces the user to cock their wrist down to get a proper sight picture. This, for people like myself that shoot 1911s, will find that this grip angle is far more comfortable and easier to use, but that's debatable. Longtime Glock users may wind up hating this. I grew up with 1911s. I love this grip angle and prefer it over the Glock. Also, you'll notice that there's a much larger beaver tail back here, which is far more pronounced than it would be on a standard factory Glock. And that is a failure, the first one I've had with the gun. Failed to extract a 115 grain ball round. Let's go ahead and see if we can easily clear that malfunction. The case was not stuck in the chamber. Let's resume shooting. I'll tell you what, guys, it's a failure like that that would make me want to shoot thousands more rounds before I would ever consider this gun for carry at this point. Magazine is stuck. That is a Magpul magazine. Nope. We have another malfunction. That's why the magazine's not working. Now this is with just a standard 115 grain ball. Use this stuff all the time. It's a lot that we've been using extensively in other firearms. We just started shooting it with the OZ9. See if I can just pry that out with finger pressure. Sure enough, I mean, it's just going to pop right out, guys. Here's the spent case. No signs of high pressure. The extractor is just simply not pulling it out. I mean, it's not stuck in there. I pried it out. I mean, I wouldn't even have to pry it. Probably could have let gravity pull it out if I would have shook it hard enough. That is not very good. Okay, let's try it again. Got a couple more mags of the ammunition. I know the ammo's good. Could it be a magazine issue? I don't know. I've never seen a magazine issue like that before. Some more of the 115 grain stuff. Okay. Interesting. Well, we have a couple hundred more rounds, that 115 grain stuff. Let's see if we can isolate it to a particular magazine. I know which one it is on the ground, and see if we have that failure again. The trigger on this gun looks like polymer, and it is loaded, so that's why I have it pointed away from my face. But we've shot the gun extensively this afternoon. When we finish off these next few magazines, it will be a total of 700 rounds fired through the gun this afternoon. But the trigger has gotten very hot. And of course the slide and barrel are warm to the touch as well. But it's interesting to note how warm that trigger is. I just assume the trigger is polymer because I'm used to the polymer triggers on Glocks. This trigger actually gets hot with extensive use. We are shooting the 115 grain ball ammunition. So far we've had 2 failures. Casing landed right on my index finger. All right, and this will be 700 rounds. All right, 700 rounds fired. You can see my hand is getting some use. It's not painful, but you can see that we've been shooting the handgun quite a bit this afternoon. All right, let's talk about some final thoughts here. So some final thoughts on the OZ9. I was really let down by the 2 malfunctions we had out here this afternoon. Here are the 700 rounds of ammunition that we fired. You can see this is the 115 grain stuff, the American Eagle. This is a mixture of 130 and 124 grain Syntech, but we fired 700 rounds to this guy, and we had 2 failures to extract and eject of the 115 grain Federal, and that is this stuff. And you see us shooting this all the time here on the channel. This is the exact same lot number that we've used in countless different guns. We have a lot of it on hand, and I've never seen a malfunction like that. We checked the spring tension on the extractor, seems to be fine. Don't know what caused it, and after that 1 magazine with those 2 failures, we haven't seen any more failures this afternoon. But that brings me back to my point that I've made in previous videos and a little bit in this video. This handgun, I think, is well suited for competitive type shooting, things like that. In terms of defensive carry, this would probably it would be very low on my list of guns as potential concealed carry candidates. I don't like this mag well on a carry gun. As you've seen at least once here this afternoon, we had the magazine fall out, maybe even twice, where the magazine fell out after I thought I had it fully inserted, even with the slide lock to the rear. I just don't like these mag wells. They inhibit a reload of a conventional magazine that doesn't have an extended base plate. Now, if you're a competitive shooter and you're shooting the +2 base plates, this is a non-issue and it's very desirable. I don't like having open cuts in my slide on carry guns. And this is a totally new handgun, so it has to be treated as such. I would want to run thousands and thousands and thousands of rounds out of this gun before I totally trusted it, because even though it looks like a Glock, it's not necessarily a Glock. A lot of things have changed. And so for concealed carry, this is about as far as I'll go with modifications, which is nothing more than a row bar finish to the slide, some aftermarket sights, has the factory trigger, and that's about it. I have an undercut here on the trigger guard so I can get a deeper grip on the gun. That's about it. Contact concealment holster outside the waistband. This is a gun that I used to carry. So this is a concealed carry candidate? No. Those 2 malfunctions would definitely keep me from carrying this handgun as a defensive handgun. So now, any number of things could cause those malfunctions. I'll have to shoot this handgun much more to see if it happens again. But yeah, it is what it is. This gun comes to market at almost $1,700. It's in the high $1,600 range. And so people are going to say that's ridiculously priced. It is a good deal if you plan on buying a factory Glock and sending it to ZEV or to Agency or any of the other companies that heavily modify them with all the features on this handgun, and then including its modular trigger system. This one will actually save you several $100s because it's built this way from the factory versus modifying an existing Glock. You'll have to go out and buy the gun, you have to mail it to them, and then they're going to make all sorts of extensive modifications to it. And again, from what I've been told on the internet from people that modify these guns, this gun actually saves you several $100s if you're going to go to this extent in terms of your modifications. All right, guys, if you'd like to support us here at the Military Arms channel, a great way to do that is to become a Patreon supporter. There is a link down below. Please follow that link and consider supporting us here at the Military Arms channel. Also, swing by and check us out at coppercustom.com. Thanks for 11 years of support, and we'll talk to you guys soon.